Interestingly, well, interesting to me, this is the 54th day in a row that I have streamed. My normal schedule is a few days a week, and I did that at the end of September. Then I did horror movies every day in October, and now for 20 days, counting today, I've done NaNoWriMo here in November. And so 54 days, and then I'll finally get my first day off in that amount of time, and we'll be back on Tuesday, regular schedule. We have American Thanksgiving here next week, this coming week. So I'll take the Wednesday and Thursday off, and then we'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday like normal thereafter. Probably miss a couple streams around Christmas as well and that sort of thing. But it feels kind of weird to have done this many days in a row. Kind of unusual. It's not really my normal pattern of doing things. I try to keep it to a few days a week so I can work on other things. I'd kind of gotten into a place where I was having trouble with it because I do have some cognitive difficulties that working out medically, and so I would get days where I was just so cloudy I didn't know if I could do the stream. So I ended up canceling several streams over the course of a few months and kind of pushing into that movie watch thing for October, and then this for November was kind of my way of working through all that to get back in the pattern of doing it. So I'm hoping once I go back to 3 days a week, I'll still be able to pop on with the same energy and be able to get through everything. But today we're going to finish a novel, which I think is something special. This is Ruthless, Rabid, Raging, Ravenous, Rampaging, Remorseless, Repulsive, Revolting, Repugnant Zombies by J. Wilburn. And we are in the home stretch on this. Our character Waldo has found himself in a little bit of trouble. Finally been bitten by a zombie. He could only tempt fate for so very long. And now the chapters have kind of gotten a little short, which I think is fine. I might need to break up some of the earlier chapters into some shorter chunks for readers, but that's the kind of stuff you work out during editing. So we'll do this little bit here that started off chapter 24, and we'll press on through, and we're going to go all the way to the end today. I'm going to. You guys can do whatever you want. I mean, I'm not holding you captive, unless you're so captivated by the story that you just can't let it go. Waldo made it farther than he ever expected. There was something to be said about putting one foot in front of the other when you had nothing left to lose. They stopped at a shallow creek that passed through a pipe under this side street. Waldo knelt and splashed a little in his face. It felt good, but the heat was coming from inside, so there was only so much he could do about it. He did realize he was about to doze off. He didn't realize he was about to doze off until he felt himself tilting forward toward the water with his eyes closed. He jolted and sucked in air through his teeth. As he got his bearings, he realized Lexus had grabbed him by the collar to keep him from falling in. That might have been a refreshing fall, though. Waldo splashed water over his skin and washed away as much of the gore as he could. He hoped anyone downstream was boiling their water. He couldn't get all the muck off his right arm. He'd probably need one of those lava soaps the mechanics always used. He cleaned his wound too, even though it would make no difference in the end. Washing himself off at least made him feel human again. Cadman, thank you for the raid, man. Appreciate it. Made him feel human again. That was something he wanted for his final moments as a human. They returned to the road and walked on. All right. I have a tendency with this outline to embellish, so I'll get caught up on a particular detail and I'll run with it for a little while, which is fine, but I don't want to emphasize things that don't require it. As you start to get toward the end of a story, a lot of times it's just better to press on through and get yourself to the ending as concisely as possible. Because even though people may be sold in on the story, you don't want to dwell on things too much and kind of lose their interest there. 6-hour streams, good grief! Congratulations, man. All right. They turned at the billboard advertisement for the Naked Kitty. Large strips of the material had pulled away from its glue hung down over the narrow catwalk and the dead lights for that roadside billboard. I'll say above them, kind of give some position there. All right. What remained showed a bottle blonde woman who appeared road weary, even with the glamour shot blur of the photo. Details of what Naked Kitty offered and where it was located were lost in the peeled sections. Okay. I want to add one detail up here. Large strips of material had pulled away from the glue, the catwalk, so on and so forth. What remained showed a bottle blonde woman against a bubblegum, it's 2 words, is it 2 words? Yeah, bubblegum pink background, who appeared road weary, so on and so forth. There we go. Wanted to put that one color detail in there. As uneven asphalt, less than 2 lanes wide, gave way. Hold on, am I in the right place? What am I saying? As uneven asphalt, less than 2 lanes wide, gave way. Mr. Frank, catching up on those channel points there, or J-coin as you call it. As uneven asphalt, less than 2 lanes wide, gave way to unpaved road. They followed the signs for the campground along the gradual incline of the trail. Let's say of the back road, because now they're on a back road here. Okay. They reached a trio of abandoned, okay, let me spell trio correctly. They reached a trio of abandoned cars along the side of the road. Parked as close to the drainage ditch as they could get. A moldy t-shirt was rolled up in one of the windows, just like the last time Waldo had passed this way on his long walk into the city. Rest in peace, cheer. All right. Sending the fish head. Thank you, sir. All right, Waldo had passed this way on his long walk into the city. He raised his eyes. All right. Sorry, I'm experimenting. That's fine, sir. Just, do whatever you like in there. Try to keep it PG. We never know who's watching. But you figure out the channel, man. There's no telling what you might discover that you can teach us all. All right. He raised his eyes. Light. The failing light of the day pulsed in his vision. He spied columns of gray smoke rising from unseen chimneys. They were closer. A short drive. A longer walk, but closer. Waldo had to unstick his tongue from the roof of his mouth in order to speak. His mouth tasted like feet and old cheese after a night's sleep. But again, things like that were the least of his worries. Send some Force J's way. Thank you, sir. I can use all I can get. Things like that were the least of his worries today. He started to talk, broke into coughing, and cleared his throat a few times. To her credit, Lexus waited silently beside him for the fit to pass. Waldo tried again. Only a few more. His mind was too cloudy to register what he was going through. Something had come undone inside him. Thank you, Frank. Something had come undone inside him. He couldn't tell if it was mental or physical. He opened his mouth again to cry for help, he thought. say Waldo wavered, and Lexus tried to catch him. But he shifted away from her at the last moment and bounced his head off the fender of one of the cars. Let's say, alright, don't need to move all that around. He caught himself on his forearms. But his forehead still bounced against the packed roadway. Grit and fine sand ground into the raw bite wound on his arm. The best he could do was to fold over on his side. Lexus took his shoulder and rolled him the rest of the way to his back. The side of his head leaned. Alright. You guys are having fun with the emotes there. There's so many emotes and so few of them get love. It's good to dig deep in there and find a few to play around with. Somebody went to all the trouble to make those, you know, and we really should use them more. The side of his head leaned against the rubber of the flattening, splitting tire. It was uncomfortable, but it felt warm. Felt warm against his skin, which had suddenly turned cold. He had more trouble breathing on his back. Breathing from his back. In Jerry Seinfeld voice, why are these people making silly emote faces? He had more trouble breathing from his back, but he decided it didn't matter anymore. Breathing was easy. Zombies did it all the time. That was one of the worst Seinfeld impressions ever. Oh, man. But you kind of caught me off guard, but still on the fly, I thought it was all right, man. Mr. Frank is a notoriously tough critic. Even when he enjoys something, you probably only expect 3 stars most of the time. Zombies did it all the time. Okay. Waldo croaked out a few more words. Now that he didn't have to focus on standing. 2. Worst Seinfeld impression ever. Come on, Mr. Frank. Couldn't be the worst. All right. You have to take the pack. To the place. The place we're going. They helped. They're gone now. But they helped them. And they I'm cold. And I want to go home. Tell them okay, all right. Trying to make that a little confusing so it sounds like he's slipping down. All right. Take it. So take it and tell them. I will, Waldo. I promise. All right. You can, okay. Let's say his eyes rolled as if searching for something to focus on. Lexus, as if to focus on. Okay, wonder if Jay dreams about Waldo at night. Oh, 2 stars and a moon? All right, well, I'll take it. No, I don't dream about Waldo at night. Maybe if this was all I did, but I end up working on all kinds of things today. I didn't feel very good today, but I'm proud of as much as I got done. Got a lot done in terms of other projects I'm trying to wrap up before the holidays. All right, his eye. I was about to go to Lexus's point of view, but we're still in the same chapter, and the entire book has been his point of view. So until we change chapters, I can't really focus in on that. All right. His eyes rolled as if searching for something to focus on. He wasn't really seeing anything at that point. Nothing that was really there anyway. I will, Waldo, I promise. You can close your eyes now. You won. They'll get all of it. The moment stretched out as he lay there, and she knelt over him. No tears were shed by either of them. His eyes drifted closed, but they would not stay that way. Not in this world. Okay. She took out the gun. She took out her gun. He was still breathing. If she checked, he'd still have a pulse, but she didn't check. At this point, there really was no point. No matter how much she pushed, this was as far as Waldo was going to go on his living legs anyway. Alright. So is this the end of Waldo? Let's find out. She opened the weapon to find it empty. Lexus laughed. Alright. Slow Saturday today. Well, there you go. It must be nice after all the traffic and hassle you've gone through for the week. She opened the weapon to find it empty. Lexus laughed. With a bitter edge. And put it away. She took out her blade and held it over Waldo for a moment. His breathing started and stopped in irregular bursts, like some severe case of apnea. After another moment of watching him struggle for breath, she put the blade away too. Okay, Lexus stood and checked through the cars around them. Every door and hinge creaked and popped when opened. Someone had searched through these before. What was left was mostly broken, but she searched thoroughly anyway. She took the flexible end of a broken fishing pole, some plastic pole ties that had slipped under the fabric of the trunk. Okay. a length of chain, curled on the ground inside one of the wheels. And under a seat, she found a padlock with a key. Okay. That's a lot for cars that have been searched. Okay, let me say that. That seemed like a lot for cars that had probably been searched in the past. Okay. Moving along. She rolled Waldo without much reaction from him. Hey Tom, thanks for dropping in. I appreciate it. She rolled Waldo without much reaction from him. His labored breathing and long pauses continued on. Okay. She started attaching the flexible pole to his back with a couple of the pole ties. Okay. All right, let me do new paragraph. Looking through the woods, just off the road. All right, Tom Duffy. I was worried about the last couple days, but I'm over 45,000 and I will finish by midnight tonight. Good grief. Man, you have packed on words. You had a couple real long days of big word counts, man. You put in the time to get that far. Looking through the woods just off the road, she located a fallen branch. With the right length, thickness, and weight for what she wanted. All right. Okay, once everything was attached, I'm stubborn. When I set my mind to something, I tend to do it. I think stubbornness is an underrated quality of writers. I think stubbornness may be more important than talent, and I don't say that to imply that anybody's untalented. I'm just saying that if you're talented and you can't bring yourself to sit down and do something with it, then you're not going to get as much done as somebody who's persistent. And I guess the more honorary way to say that is stubbornness. But I think it's an underrated quality for creators of all types, but especially writers. So congratulations on your stubbornness, Tom. It's paying off. You're using your stubbornness for good. All right. Once everything was attached, she left Waldo curled on his side, and she waited. His breathing seemed to improve for a little while, but only a little while. Checking the rising smoke that appeared to be a few miles away. I'll say a few miles ahead because that's where they're going. A few miles ahead. She shook her head. Stupid. You'll all be dead soon. Let me put something else up here. Okay, she opened the trunks, going forward. Lexus stood, cars around. Alright, she rolled without much reaction from him. Lexus removed. Okay. Lexus removed the pack. No, removed Waldo's precious pack and set it aside for a moment. All right. Okay. She went through the pack herself as the light faded and Waldo's breathing slowed further. All right. All right. Okay, so we'll break that chapter and do 25. I'm not sure how many more chapters are going to be, but these aren't going to be terribly long. Because again, I'm moving through the home stretch here to finish up on purpose. All right. He breathed. Now let's say Waldo took one long, deep breath, and Lexus turned her attention on him again. He let all that air out slowly, but his chest did not rise again. All right, I need to spell Lexus's name correctly, but his chest did not rise again. Okay, news paragraph. She waited as the sky took on a purple hue that made the ground and trees around her into deep shadows. All right, Waldo stirred. At first, it only seemed like twitches. Let's say muscle twitches. Muscle twitches. But then his limbs and head moved in sharp bursts of undirected motion. He bounced his head off the side of the car, but she made no move to go to him. Alright, I got past the two scenes I was dreading. That's good, which held me up. So now it's putting everything together for the end. Yeah, and you can always go back and work on those. So I know people stress out in a moment like that. Did I make the right choice? Did I not? But once you read back through, you can see if you go right through it or if it needs a little work now that it's done. He bounced his head off the side of the car, but she made no move to go to him. His right fist opened and closed several times in rapid succession before folding open limp. Alright, so we got him resurrecting here. Let's move this along. Then he shifted with a little more purpose. Lexus took hold of the branch that was attached to the flexible pole strapped to Waldo's back. She took her end of the chain that was padlocked around his neck and she waited a little longer. Okay. He got up to his knees. Got up to his knees and leaned his right arm over the edge of the car's hood. She didn't have a name for the vehicle, for the type of vehicle, but it had been light blue when the sun still shined. It was boxy. With sharp angles. Waldo went on leaning against it for another several seconds. He clicked his tongue, and then he smacked his lips several times. My like he was trying to get some taste out of his mouth. What did zombies taste anyway? Alright. It was boxy, but good, like a Volvo. There you go. I should take a dig at at some car company there, like I did earlier in the story. Alright. Waldo stood. So she gripped boxy, but good, like a Volvo. That should be the slogan. She gripped the chain like a leash. And held the attached length of branch as well. Okay. All right, let's keep moving. Lexus took a quick moment to adjust the pack on her shoulder. Say the pack she had taken from him. The pack she had taken from him. All right. Bump, bump, bump. Waldo lifted his fist. Paused. And then punched straight down into the hood of the boxy car with a boom that startled her. Okay, put a space in there. He slammed his knuckles, let's say the knuckles. He slammed the knuckles of his right fist straight down again and again. That noise had to carry a mile at least, but she let it go on. The metal dented, and he kept punching. Between impacts, a twig snapped out in the trees, and lower branches rustled. This was bound to happen, she supposed. The dead emerged from the forest. Shortly after. Now Lexus clicked her tongue before saying, "Your friends are here, Waldo." Zombie Waldo froze with his elbow cocked and his closed fist with his closed fist raised, and a couple slivers of bone showing through the split skin of his knuckles. He lifted his eyes slowly, as if to look for the friends she had mentioned. Alright. I'm excited to watch the end of this story. Still think it's a rom-com with Jennifer Aniston. Again, I think the Lexus character is a little young for that casting. No offense to the American Treasure or Jennifer Aniston. Lexus adjusted her grip on the branch. Okay, let me spell that correctly. Lexus adjusted the grip on the branch as she reached for her blade. But Waldo pulled away from her. The branch attached to the pole on his back wavered in the air, and the chain dragged the ground behind him. All right. He walked between the vehicles and stepped wide across the drainage ditch as he met the other zombies at the edge of the woods. They seemed to ignore him, with eyes only for Lexus beyond the cars. Okay. As they stepped around him to get to her, he punched the first one let's say he punched first one way and then the other. Zombie heads didn't hold up as well as the blue car's hood this time. Alright, got an extra D in there. The blue car's hood this time. Lexus stood and watched with her blade still in its sheath. Zombie brains spilled and bodies fell. Alright. When you do notes, is it just a short idea to keep you going forward, or do you write a bit more? It's both. It's both. So sometimes I just have like a bullet point and the words, and I know I got to make that into a sentence. Other times, depending, I write out the entire dialogue. And I make some adjustments as I go through. And for the ending of this, I went a little more detailed on the dialogue because I kind of wanted to wrap it up. I can already tell a lot of this is probably going to get edited out, but I'm putting it in there anyway, so I have it down, and then I can make choices once we get to the editing phase. Say he paused when the work was done and stared into the trees. She wondered if he was going to keep walking and whether she would just let him go. All right. Then he turned and growled at her. Zombie Waldo came toward her with his arms outstretched. Okay. Suddenly I can't spell anymore. All right, Waldo came toward her with arms outstretched. He stumbled over the ditch, but got up and kept coming. He was still a zombie, after all. Okay. She could have cut him down as easily as all the ones before him, but she had other plans. She ran around the cars. Alright, poor Waldo Bloodfist, I know. What an ending. What an unceremonious ending. She ran around the cars a couple times in order to get behind him. He tried to turn on her, but she got the branch and the chain leash and and foiled his attempts. Let's say Lexus turned him up the road and started him walking again. On the journey they had begun when he was alive. Even in the failing light, the signs to the campground were as clear as he had told her they would be. Alright, doing good, doing good. Let's keep going. He tried to turn on her a couple more times. But she, okay. So when you get to the end, quote unquote, how many words do you think you should go beyond that to close everything up? Right now I'm a little over 49,000. Again, like I said, a lot of what I have here will probably be edited out, but I want to go ahead and get it in anyway. I mean, I may go 51,000, but I don't think so. I'm going to finish today. So like regardless of where 50,000 words hits, I'm going to finish what I have written out, and that'll be the end of the story. So it'll be completely drafted for me to, work on editing in the new year. So it finishes today. All right. He tried to turn on her a couple more times, but she jerked the chain and put him back on course. One foot in front of the other, like always. Okay. Finally, the tendency to turn aside, subsided, it seemed. Okay, we'll have that then. As she guided him onward along the dirt path, he kept punching the air. Zombies carried all sorts of habits from life into undeath. She'd never seen one punch out other zombies before, though. His fist sort of flew in random directions from time to time, as if searching for anything worth hitting. Okay. More zombies climbed the slope. Let's say more zombies emerged from a, hold on, I don't mean in terms of 50K, I mean at the end of the action. A lot of writers put in some sort of epilogue. I'm thinking that should be a short. Yes, absolutely. And I guess technically this is either the epilogue or the denouement or whatever literary position it holds. So I guess technically I'm in that now. But in a sense, I'm kind of wrapping up the action because we had this MacGuffin in the backpack that he's carrying, and this character that he sort of has a partnership with, that's kind of a loose partnership, I guess, in the story, and she sort of promised him to take it through. So my thought is kind of get it to that conclusion of the mission, I suppose, and then I'm gonna kind of leave it there. I imagine I'm not gonna go into okay, and here's what happened to Lexus years later and all that kind of stuff. Maybe the book does well. Maybe I'll do a sequel, but who knows? So more zombies emerged from a copse. Nope, I spelled that wrong. No, I think that's right. Of trees, and climbed the slope of the field toward the road and her. Okay, let's say I'll say Waldo moved toward them and she allowed it. All right. He punched their brains out as well. Most of their heads came apart with one hit. If not, he gave them more. It seemed that the undead's lack of pain allowed more power behind the punches. She never wanted to be on the receiving end of one of those. Okay. Say, okay, Kedman, in Red Dead Redemption 2 game, the epilogue feels longer than the main story. Yeah, that's not what you want, and you also don't want that in a prologue either. There's a lot of debate about prologues, but a lot of times it just would serve to have it be the first chapter, Alright. I've already done that part earlier. As the last one went down, this cluster of zombies went down. He knelt over it, punching the blood-matted grass and dirt long after the head, say brains, long after the brains had turned into poison fertilizer. Alright. It says, and it is better that the main story too, so maybe the main story is the prologue. Yeah. So the main story is just a long prologue, and it all leads up to this marvelous epilogue body of the story. Okay. Lexus stepped off the road. Okay, let me pull that up into view. Lexus stepped off the road and yanked on the end of the chain. He hesitated. But raised his fist once more. She yanked. Have I already used yanked? Yeah. She pulled the chain harder, and he stumbled backward and up to his feet. Okay. As she guided him back onto the road, he didn't turn on her this time. Okay. The last sign for the campground was the biggest. It was highly faded, but the arrow pointed up the hill, claimed they were here. There was a gate across the road, but not much of one. Three guards stood behind it. A man, a woman, and a boy close to Lexus's age. Between them, they had a bow and two spears. All right. New paragraph. It was kind of sad when the marauders... Yep, spelled it wrong again. When the marauders finally found this place, they would make short work of this weak and pitiful defense. It was a wonder they had lasted this long. This was the group Waldo gave up his life for. Okay. So she's not terribly impressed. Let's see what happens next. All right. I'll be long gone by then. she whispered to herself. Zombie Waldo grunted and reached for the guards. Say spears and bow were raised. She pulled him back and away by the chain and branch. Who? Who are you? Who are you, girl? It was the boy who spoke up. Interesting. He had on either some sort of work shirt, say short sleeve, some sort of, scroll this up, sorry, some sort of short sleeved work shirt, or bowling shirt. Kedman, you're going bowling soon, aren't you? Throwing this bowling shirt is in honor of you. Hopefully it'll give you good luck and you'll do well in your games. He had on either some sort of short-sleeved work shirt or bowling shirt. It looked a little too big for him. Yes, next Friday I'm bowling. Alright, we're going to put a bowling shirt on one of the characters here, and hopefully it'll either give you luck or get your bowling partners drunk enough to where you can kind of match up in skill level. It looked a little too big on him. The name over his heart read Felix, but she guessed that wasn't his real name. She wasn't planning. Two best bowling movies in history is The Big Lebowski and Kingpin. I like both of those. She wasn't planning on staying long enough to get to know anyone. All right. She shook the chain and asked, "Do you know him?" All right. The three guards exchanged looks. The boy, probably not Felix, lowered his spear and spoke again. Say, and spoke for the group again. That's Waldo. She pulled the chain again and circled zombie Waldo away from the gate. All right. We're getting there. He said you were good people. He cared about you. Cared about you enough to help you. The same boy said we helped some of his people a long time ago. We are good people. He was good too. He was bringing you something. Lexus focused on not Felix, since he was the only one who found his tongue. Do you know what it is? The woman with the bow spoke up. We know what it was supposed to be. All right, we know what it was supposed to be. Lexus swung the pack around and unzipped it one-handed. Try to take this from me before I give it, and you'll regret it. Can you see it? We can see it. Not Felix said. And we don't take anything. Why are you here? Alright, Duffy redeemed. Get Jay to tell a fun fact. Alright, man. It'd be a good time to take a break anyway. Okay. Alright. For about once a year, for a large portion of my life, before I was writing full-time, I was teaching school, and every summer I would reread the book The Stand by Stephen King. It was kind of my favorite book. It probably still is. And so every summer between school years, I'd reread it because it was a book that I liked very much. And as I kind of went on, I was reading other things, so I didn't quite continue that tradition every year. And I reread it, not recently, but as I was going through my Stephen King reread, which I'm almost done with, I'd picked up the stand again, and it was right around the time that I was getting my kidney transplant. And I was reading back through it, and it seemed like the story was moving really fast, and like it seemed more concise than I remembered it being. And what I realized was, as I'd been reading The Stand, and this was before I was writing, I was kind of like imagining all sorts of different things that could happen. Like, what would I do in this situation? What would other people I knew do in this? So in my mind, I was like kind of running through all these different scenarios of what the end of the world would be like. And that book kind of changed the way I thought in terms of apocalypse and all that kind of stuff. And what I kind of realized now was that this drive in me to like tell stories and write stories that was kind of laying dormant at that time in my life. I was sort of getting that out just by imagining different stories and scenarios around that. So as I was rereading The Stand more recently, I realized that like every other time I'd read it, I'd just kind of been imagining all these different things that could happen differently. And so some of that had kind of become the story for me, to where like some of the stuff I had other alternatives, like what if they'd done this or what if they'd done that, had kind of almost become part of the story for me as I was going through. So I realized rereading it that my own imagination had kind of become part of the myth of that story for me, and kind of rereading the actual story itself, even though that book's quite long, almost felt like there was stuff missing because of all the stuff I'd invented, sort of. So there's only a few books in my life that I've reread more than once, but that's one of them, and it really did kind of change the way I thought about things. I tried to read The Stand and gave up about 80 pages. Nothing happened for me. It like I said, when I went back through it, it felt like there was stuff missing, but I do think probably of all his books, it probably has some of the best lines. So just all the way through some of the catchiest lines and dialogue and some of that stuff, I think in his entire catalog might be in there. I understand why some people don't like it. So do you actually have 3 kidneys, or you got one? No, I got 3. So I have the 2 old ones that don't really work, and then one of my friends donated a kidney when I needed a transplant, so I have a third one. So 3 total kidneys, 1 that actually works, and it works pretty well actually. I got tests done just the other day, and it's the function of my kidneys actually improved. So I was already doing really well. Now it's kind of fully in like the normal human mode, and not just normal for kidney transplant patients. So with whatever else I got going on in my life, that's going really well. Where do they find space for 3 kidneys? Normally kidneys are very, very small. My native kidneys, because I have polycystic kidney disease, are huge in my back. And kind of they cause my stomach to protrude and all kinds of problems. So at some point I might have to get them removed. Sometimes they diminish over time, and they're kind of hoping that's what's going to happen. But when they put in a new kidney, it's up in the front. So your first kidney transplant, if you end up needing more than one, goes in the front right. So it kind of goes up there, and it's easy to connect to the bladder. If I ever need a second kidney transplant, it'll go up on the front left, and they'll have to come across to the bladder then. So so I got kind of different anatomy from your normal human there. All right, so she's shown the pack. We wouldn't do that. Okay. She says, I brought what he died to bring you, but I want to speak to who is in charge first. Okay. It's a council of people. I think I used the wrong kind of council, but that's all right. It's a council of people. Waldo, not Felix, said. All right. We can take you to them, the woman added. All right. Okay. Why did you bring him like this? Not Felix asked. Like I said, I'm probably going to cut some of this dialogue down, but I want to have it all here so I have things to choose from when I start cutting. Sorry if this is too personal a question. It probably isn't. But why wouldn't they remove the other kidneys? Sometimes they do, but it's rare because that's a separate surgery. So a lot of places don't do it all at once because it's safer just to leave them alone and only deal with the kidney surgery. They almost were going to have to because my native kidneys had gotten so big from the polycystic kidney disease. They're like 4, 5, 6 times the size they're supposed to be. But if they had to do that, it would have to be a separate surgery. So I wasn't on dialysis yet. So if they chose to do that, they would have to perform the surgery to take my kidneys out, and I would have had no kidneys. I would have had to go on kidney dialysis, would have had to wait for that to settle and all that to heal up. Then they would have been able to put the new kidney in. And so it was a bad idea. It would have caused more problems than it solved. So at some point I may have to have them removed. But that's not necessarily true. I mean, there are some risks. Any surgery has risks, so taking, kidneys out can be rough, obviously. I am at a higher risk of cancer, so I have to be careful about the sun because of the immunosuppressives I'm on. I'm more susceptible to cancer, so I get checked a lot and that kind of thing. But it's also possible that the native kidneys could develop cancer at some point. It's not guaranteed, and it doesn't happen most of the time, but it's something they're going to have to watch for. So there's reasons to take them out. But obviously any surgery that you can avoid having is better because there's always the risk there. And especially if things are going well, like my kidney function's really, really good, they don't necessarily want to be poking around in there, although it is something I kind of am in regular conversation with the surgeon and that kind of thing. Who's keeping track of me and that kind of stuff. But it's all things being equal, it's usually better to leave everything alone and just add the new kidney in and go forward like that, especially if you haven't been on dialysis before. All right, still talking with Alexis. And again, anybody, anytime, feel free to talk in the chat. Don't hesitate if you got a question or a comment or anything else, or just want to spill some emotes around. I had a long thing here, but I'm going to cut it down. I'm going to say I wanted you to see what it cost him. And I made him a promise to see this through. Waldo punched at the air over the road once, but otherwise remained still and seemed calm. Alright, we are in the home stretch, folks. I have... still feels like I got a lot. I definitely need to cut some of this out. You can't bring him. Not Felix said. Sorry. Alright. Lexus wasn't sure he was sorry, but she hauled Waldo off the road, off the trail, toward one of the bigger trees. Okay. She pulled another plastic tie from her pocket and bound his chain in a loop around the tree. Okay, he sort of watched her do it with his hands down to his side, with his hands down at his sides. And both fists balled. His eyes floated back and forth with a milky white film obscuring them. The blackness in his veins had spread everywhere under his skin. Okay. Now I'm going to make that all, I'm going to cut these two sentences into their own paragraph because they're more description of him than what's going on. All right. Okay, where are we now? Right there? Okay. He was proving useful. She knew he hadn't wanted to be like this. But it was a tough world. And having a punching zombie guard dog of sorts was quite an asset. So she supposed she was breaking one promise to him, but she was keeping the one that really mattered to him the most. Okay. As she walked away from the tree, he lunged out to the end of his chain and reached for her. She heard his teeth clack together as she moved out of his range. All right. Still a zombie, she said. Okay. Alright, looks like one more page here. By the time she had reached the trail again, he had settled down. All right. Thanks for responding to that. I didn't want to get too personal about that. Just curious. No, it's no problem. I talk about it all the time. I had to talk about that kind of stuff back when it was going on, because I was looking for a living donor. So I had to tell people what was going on in order to make it known what I needed. And I found the more I talked about the stuff I went through, the more people responded, because there's so much of our lives, especially the personal stuff, that we don't necessarily want to be everybody up in our business all the time, but a lot of us keep all of that secret into ourselves. So a lot of people go through life thinking they're the only ones suffering from things, and that everybody else kind of has their lives together and everything's fine, and they don't want to be a burden and all that kind of stuff. And when I kind of started sharing what I was going through, I found more and more people reaching out and saying, telling me things they were going through too, and how they felt like they were isolated and there wasn't anybody there they could relate to, and that kind of stuff. And so I kind of decided to be more open about those kind of things, not to, garner sympathy or anything like that, but because there's too many times in our lives that we kind of feel like we're fighting all our battles alone, and that no one else can relate to what we're dealing with, and no one else wants to hear it, and that kind of stuff. And it's unfortunate, because probably the worst part of suffering any kind of pain or medical issues or struggles or anything like that is the idea of isolation, of just feeling alone, and getting further and further from people who can help carry the burdens and stuff for you. So in that sense, I just kind of decided to keep that part of my life open, so that other people going through similar things have somebody they can talk to or reach out to, and that kind of thing. All right. Now back to zombies. No, I'm just kidding. By the time she reached the trail again, he had settled down. Waldo punched the tree once and sent bark flying out from the trunk. So he wandered away from it and punched the air some more. All right, Kidman, my boss at my old work had a sort of migraine who could cause the brain to be swollen and not treated. The worst sort of migraine. Yeah, that sounds terrible. And again, it's kind of one of those situations where we all kind of go through our own things. And, as much as I've struggled with some of the stuff I've gone, I wouldn't trade with anybody. There's not somebody else's suffering that I'm interested in taking on in exchange for my own. So, we all kind of go through things that no one else would want to deal with, and that's one I wouldn't want to trade for sure. Okay. They let Lexus through the flimsy gate. The woman started to lead her up the hill and into the camp, as the silent man and not Felix remained at the gate with their spears. I'll say Lexus stopped and called back. Don't mess with him. I want him just as I left him when I come back. Got it? The boy shivered visibly. We won't. looked back and forth between the woman and the other guards. Not Felix met her eyes and said, "We won't. I promise." Okay. I hold people to their promises, Lexus said. I'm literally in the final lines of this story. I'm so excited. All right, I hold people to their promises, Lexus said. So don't test me, boy. She saw a little heat rise in his face. It could have been anger, fear, or embarrassment. It drained away as quickly as it had blushed. Okay. I won't. We won't. He's paid enough to get here. Lexus took a deep breath and felt all the tension and ache from the day hold firmly in place inside her. Okay, that's the price of everything these days. Before she could turn, he asked, "What's your name?" She hesitated, but finally answered. Lexus Bloodfist. I'll say, not Felix. Not Felix said his name. I'll say not Felix gave his real name. But she didn't commit it to memory as she climbed the hill with the woman, taking Lexus to who she needed to see to get what she wanted for the pack. she had promises to keep. And she wanted to be miles away from here before she slept. Alright, did you know the end of this when you started? I know you usually don't outline. Yes. Yes, I knew. I had the thin outline, I guess what you call the chapter bullet points of sorts. So I knew all the major beats. Him punching the zombie at the beginning, him running through the street. I knew he would end up under the cars. I knew he would end up going through I knew he would see her for the first time on the building, that he would go into a different building and see her a couple times as he was fighting his way through. I knew about the truck. I knew about him ending up in another place. I knew about the truck coming back and them using it, and them teaming up. And I knew about them getting here, and I knew he was going to get bitten and all that kind of stuff, and how it was going to end. Now, the more specific details and these dialogue points and stuff like that, I kind of worked out as we went. I knew the beats for sure, and then I really worked out the detail and how, because technically, she's doing him a big favor, and I gave her kind of her own reasons for doing it. She needs supplies and that kind of stuff. But I kind of needed they weren't ever really, these two characters that weren't ever really going to have like this magic moment where they bonded and all that kind of stuff. So I knew I had to be real like specific and careful about how I got them to where they were going. So that they had some moments. She was impressed with him, and she decided to see it through. And even though she wants supplies in exchange for these goods, whatever they are, I also knew I was never going to show what was actually in the pack. I knew that like this was going to be a very loose connection between them, and that the story was just going to be this powerhouse forward until we got to the end. Do you find female characters more interesting than male characters? I find characters that are not me very interesting. So I tend to I'm a straight white male. And I tend to, if I can write a female character, I'll do that. If I can write, gay characters or characters from a different cultural background for myself and do it well, I'll tend to do that. People with a different worldview than me, I prefer to write those characters because I find the differences more interesting than just, writing somebody who's me. Okay, so the real question, did you know about the toe scene? I didn't until I got to the specifics. So I knew there was, well, no, that's not true. I did. I did know that he was going to get a piece of a zombie in his mouth and not like it. And so as I got closer to that scene, I kind of worked out how it was going to happen, the way it did. So yeah, I did know there was going to be that kind of grossness and that, invasion of his personal space, but as I got to the actual scene, I got the details in there more, and I actually wanted to kind of call that back a little more. So I might write in some more callbacks to that when I get to the editing part, because it's kind of an interesting thing, and of course coming back day after day, sometimes you forget to include some of that stuff. Was it then I came to the question if you wouldn't have been infected to him? Yeah, and I kind of knew that too. So of course, the bite was the final thing, that kind of makes the question moot as to whether, he got infected by earlier. But I knew I was kind of putting him through the grinder, so he was constantly getting splashed by this stuff. It was constantly on his face. He got a zombie toe in his mouth, just all this stuff that kind of kept happening to him, and scratches and bruises. And, there's no way to drag this guy through the streets the way I did and not have exposures. So I felt a little comfortable putting that stuff in without answering the question directly. And I even had him consider the question, the fact that he'd been exposed to all this stuff, but I knew he was going to get bitten. And so, I felt comfortable kind of throwing all this stuff at him, knowing that there was this possibility that he may have been infected already before he ever got bitten, just from all the stuff that he's been through and that he was exposed to. So it kind of answered the question without answering it. Is the zombie toe in the mouth PG? He got really weird about it. He kind of felt uncomfortable and violated and all that kind of stuff. So it definitely was not a highlight of his life, probably, that haunts him. And I kind of put some mentions here at the end after he turned zombie that he's acting like he's tasting something. So maybe the taste he has in his mouth is what zombies taste like, and since he had the zombie toe in his mouth, he already has that taste that he doesn't like in his mouth now that he's a zombie, which would be very sad, I guess. She had promises to keep, and she wanted to be miles away from here before she slept. That's kind of an offhanded reference to the Robert Frost poem, of course. All right. And I even have a note here to make this last part the same paragraph. Wait, you made him a zombie, what? All right. So same paragraph, final paragraph. Darkness had finally settled, finally fallen, had finally fallen full. I kept trying to put that in, take that out, but I'm going to put it in for now. Darkness had finally fallen full on Waldo Bloodfist's last day alive. As the mission was completed, here, I'm kind of debating this final line. Let's say, as the mission was completed for him. I kind of don't like that takes power away from him and what he did, but it's the truth, though. As the mission was completed for him. Nope, I'm going to take it out. As the mission was completed, because that's what happened. The mission was completed. He stood alone and punched out at the night around him. While others looked on in fear. All right, I may rework that final line, but that's it. All right, so she had, final paragraph, she had promises to keep, and she wanted to be miles away from here before she slept. Darkness, which I will spell correctly. Darkness had finally fallen full on Waldo Bloodfist's last day alive. As the mission was completed, he stood alone and punched out at the night around him while others looked on in fear. All right, and that is the end of the book. Another title for your book, Waldo's Day Out. There you go. That would be a lot easier to remember than Ruthless, Rabid, Raging, Ravenous, Rampaging, Remorseless, Repulsive, Revolting, Zombies. Repugnant. The last one's Repugnant, sorry. All right. So that's it. We are done. And believe it or not, my word count came out to 50,345 words. So I had planned almost exactly to the word where this was going to end. I'm kind of shocked at that. Because again, a lot of it was adding here and, a possible sequel. There you go. Yeah. So maybe next NaNoWriMo, when I'm looking for a book to write, we're going to write the sequel to the 9R zombies, and maybe we have Lexus Bloodfist running around with her zombie on a leash, that happens to be punching, which would be very useful. A toe for Waldo. There you go. That's nice. All right, so I don't know what to do with myself now that I'm done. I'm just kidding. I got I got tons of work. Oh man, I'm re-editing a book that was released. After it was released, readers started finding a bunch of typos in it. Now, of course, this happens to be a book that's with a publisher, and so I contacted the publisher and told them I wanted it re-edited, and so the editor finally went back through it and got it to me. So I'm trying to carefully go through those edits and make sure we catch everything this time, and then get it back to them and convince them to go ahead and re-upload the ebook on that one. So I got that going on over the next couple days, but it feels good to get this done. Today I had to change things for a better flow, so failed to reach 5,000 words today. That's fine. And of course, you want the story to be the best it can be. That's the whole point. So final update. Of course, it's kind of anticlimactic because of course at one point I had 420,000 words that I put in, but the real final word count is 50,345. I am very happy with that. Any ghostwriting that you were doing, which you can talk about, I'm not doing any right now. I got several old projects that I need to get paid for, and I don't. I've been waiting on that from a couple different folks, but no new ghostwriting. So we're at 50,345, which I'm glad about. I like the people that I work for the most part. But it's not my favorite thing. When I'm able to do stuff like this and write for myself, it's the best. All right, so we finally finished for real, 50,345. Now I am going to be back on the 23rd, which is a Tuesday, and I'm going to be doing a regular stream again where I'm doing short stories. So I'm going to write a new short story on the 23rd. I'm going to edit the short story that I wrote back in September, the last time I did a short story stream, and then read a story that I'd finished. Congrats, Jay. I will finish tonight, hopefully. And I'll check in on you. So on the 23rd, I'll check in and see who's finished, and we'll do another check-in. I'm also going to look at an article that I wrote 1 year ago for Lit Reactor when I did my first live stream of a novel. And I'm going to reread that article, go back over it on the air, and talk about what's different. Like, what did I do differently this time? What am I doing differently as a streamer as opposed to those early days? And I'll do an update at that point too. So we'll be sure to do that. How short are your short stories? It just depends. I don't limit it. Average are probably between 2,000 and 4,000 words that I do on stream. But I've done some that are longer, and I've done a few flash fiction too. So I just kind of start with the title and some very scant notes, some character details, and then I just run with the story idea that I have. And a lot of times with those short stories, I don't know how they're going to end exactly. I kind of have an idea in my head, but a lot of times that changes as I go through, and kind of the story presents itself as something different than maybe I thought it was in the beginning. All right, but I'll recheck then, and then I'm going to be back on the 30th, the 1st, and the 2nd for a normal week's streams after Thanksgiving. See you later, Jay. Your morning. Yes, thank you so much. And so I'll be out in those streams too, and probably the 1st I'll check one more time, one last update on everybody with NaNoWriMo, and just kind of see where everyone is. Sorry for the caps. No, that's fine. I didn't think you were yelling at me. All right, so we'll go back to my face. We're going to look at a few buddies and kind of see where folks are. Let's see here. Some of these folks are in the same place, but they made big jumps yesterday. Let's see what this guy's doing. All right. And he's already told us about this, but we'll report it here. In the Light Fantastic, a fella named Tom Duffy is at 45,111 words today, but is still writing till midnight, and his goal is to hit 50,000 tonight, which is an impressive place to get in NaNoWriMo. A lot of people never even finish, and we got people finishing up on the 20th, which I think is a big deal and worthy of celebration. Good job, Tom. As always, we are proud of you. Let's see. Okay, Armand Rosamalia has updated. I think he's busy tonight as we're broadcasting here. Man Down, First Coast Thriller Series. Again, book 1 available on January 15th. You can pre-order now. The other 2 books will be out shortly, and he'll continue the series as well. But he is already at 44,500 words, and that's impressive considering that he was writing so many other things before he could even focus on this. So he's real close to finishing the 50,000, but then he's got plenty to do after that. And as he said, his birthday's right around Thanksgiving week, and so he's going to take some time off and then jump right back into it following the holidays. So I'll catch up with him on some of the later check-ins as well. All right. So let's do one more quick look and see who might be ready. It's Armand's birthday weekend. There you go. Yeah, he's born real close to Thanksgiving, and Chuck Buddha, I think, is like one day different from him. All right, still in the same place. I checked him yesterday. A lot of people have impressive numbers. They just haven't updated yet. So we'll double check some folks. I might have to talk to some folks off air and see how they're doing. See if maybe I might be able to encourage them to keep going. All right, he's kind of in the same place too. We'll give him a few more days and check in on him on Tuesday. And that may be it. All right, he made some progress yesterday. And I saw Kedman writing earlier today. He and I had talked online a little bit this morning for me, and midday, and he's up late right now. And so I saw him writing, but he said he was kind of making some corrections and changes and things like that, so he didn't have words to add on. But he was working on reworking what he was doing, so I know it's going to be good. Just want to thank everybody for all the support as we've gone through here. Again, I'm done with Nano, but I'm going to check back in on Tuesday, which will be a normal stream day for me. I'm going to take the Wednesday and Thursday of Thanksgiving off, and then the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday following Thanksgiving that kind of rolls us from November to December, going to be a normal week. 2 days of writing, and the Thursday will be a movie watch party,